Hello, welcome to my happy place. As I promised, when we did our January table topper, I am going to give you just a brief video here on how to attach bias binding that is already prepared for you. Okay, what I have done is I have not cut my block down yet. I am going to attach the binding first, and then I'm going to cut my block down. What my goal is to attach the binding very close to the 16-inch circle that we made with our universal circles and straights tool. I'm leaving a bit of a tail here. I'm going to go ahead and put my foot down. I have my regular foot on. I have my feed dogs up, and I'm just going to get started. I have a regular stitch length, maybe a little bit shorter, but about regular. You don't have to get crazy with it. Okay, I've just made a couple of back stitches here because this is going to be a stress point when we bring the binding together. So here we go. Nice and slow. I'm holding this down. I'm not pulling it, but I'm making sure that it's nice and flat. And I'm only taking basically a few stitches at a time because I want to stitch right in this fold line right here. Okay. So this is where stiletto or third finger, they say third hand, whatever it's called, comes in really handy. And we're just going to go all the way around doing that. Don't worry about seam allowances because what you're actually stitching in is that fold. Just stay on that fold and you will be fine. Okay. Nice and steady. This is also good practice for traveling because in essence we're traveling right on that fold. Notice that I'm keeping the edge of the binding right on that 16-inch circle that we stitched. And this is really very easy. It's just take your time. I'm not going to say it's real time consuming. I don't think it is. I think it's actually nice and relaxing to take your time, get all the way around, and then we're going to join it. And I'll show you briefly how we are going to stitch it to the back. And some of you may go, oh no, because we're going to hand stitch it. It really isn't that bad, does not take that long. And if you insist on hand stitching, that's fine, or machine stitching, that's okay too. Because what you're going to notice is this fold on the left hand side is just a little wider than the fold on the right hand side. And the reason being is that when it goes to the back, it will be just a tad longer. So if you really need to machine stitch it from the top, you should be just fine. I enjoy hand stitching. I find it to be very relaxing. It's a great thing to do in the evening while I'm winding down. Again, we're just taking small bites. And if you remember what I said when we were making our hearts, our shorter stitches give us a smoother curve or arc. And I kind of believe in that here as well. Even though we're using our feed dogs are up, we could just take small sections at a time. Get it stitched in. when I do trim this out, I'm going to trim it basically right on that 16-inch circle that we stitched in. That's going to just give us a real uniform, very nice looking round table topper. And I know where this one is going in my house. I hope you all have a place as well. I would say my dining room table because I do have a round dining room table, but during the winter after Christmas and until spring, it always has a jigsaw puzzle on it. My husband and I love to work on those in the evening, spend time together discussing the day. Some of them we think, oh, this is a piece of cake. Those are the hardest ones. But we do enjoy the time together. And around we're going to go. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you anymore with me stitching a round circle. I'm going to go ahead and get to the point where we're going to meet our two ends together, and I will be back. So I'm going to put you on hold, and we'll be right back. Okay, I am back. I'm getting towards the end where I need to join my two ends. When we do a regular seam binding, or a regular binding, we would take and we would stitch these two ends at an angle and then lay them down. I'm going to show you just an easier way to do this, simply because it can get a little tricky when you're doing it on a circle. So what I'm going to do is I've got my first end. I'm going to open that up and I'm going to finger press just a 1/4 of an inch. I have cut it on an angle, okay? And this is the angle that I've gone. Closest to the circle is going to be longer, closest to the center is going to be shorter. So you want to do it on approximately 45 degrees. If it's not perfect, it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to just finger press that down, and then I'm going to go ahead and fold my top over and just finger press that as well. Okay, so I am now going to take the other end of my bias binding and I'm going to open it up, and again I'm going to cut it on an angle, and what you're going to see is when I cut it on that angle, I'm giving myself room to put this right inside of where we're going to stitch. Now I've got a little dog ear here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Reason I'm getting rid of that is because I want to see where I am going. Okay, so here we go. We're just going to lay everything down really nice. If you want to glue baste these two pieces together, that also can be very helpful. But you can see it's easy enough to hold it all down. And here we go. I'm just going to stitch now back to the beginning where I started. Beautiful. It comes together so well. Okay, so now I've stitched. I'm ready to take it out. We can trim these threads. I'll get the extra out of the way here. Don't worry about this, it's going to be hidden. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this top and I'm going to just slide this portion that we just cut right in there, and it's going to be perfect. It is helpful to iron this down. Okay, so I'm going to iron this down and I will be right back. Okay, I am back. Now I've got my big scissors out and they are quite sizable. I love them though. They're very sharp. Nobody touches them but me. Well, if somebody tries to touch them, they learn very quickly this is off limits. Okay, so I am now going to trim my block, and I am going to trim it. If you're doing it on your machine bed and you have a grid glider, make sure you're not trimming your grid glider as well. I am going to trim this right at the point where the seam binding and the fabric meet. So you can see this is just how I've trimmed it, because we are going to then turn it over. Okay, so we're going to trim all the way around. There we go. Just want you to see how beautiful that trim is. I've done this where I have trimmed it first and then put the seam or the bias binding on. I really prefer it this way, to put the binding on and then do the trimming. So now what we're going to do, and I've got two of them up here, but what I want to show you, we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip this over. Okay, and when we do, this is what we're going to end up with right here. This has been flipped over, and then I just pressed it down. Okay, if what I did on this particular one, and I found it to be somewhat advantageous, but it's either or, you can or you don't have to. I did use a pinking shears here. Okay, and it works just fine with the pinking shears. So if that's the way you prefer to do it, that's fine as well. So now I'm going to hand stitch the back. This is the part where people say, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, I fully understand that. Normally I would use a thread that matches much better, but I am using this thread because I want you to be able to clearly see what I am doing. You probably wonder what these things are. What this is just a little piece of stick-on leather that I use as a thimble. I've checked thimbles up. I've tried, I think, every different kind available, and I've never found one that I like except this. And this is beeswax, and the reason that I run my thread through my beeswax is because it will help prevent it from knotting. It also makes it just a little bit stronger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my knot into my piece right there. And then I'm going to get some of this stuff out of the way because I really want you to see this. And I think I may even bring you in just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I have my needle. My needle is extremely small. It is the one I just enjoy working with. I am going to go from here in this direction towards me. The first thing I'm going to do is just take a small bite of fabric and binding, and I'm going to make a stitch. Just a really tiny one, not very big at all. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my needle where that stitch comes up, and I'm going to run it through on the under the fold, in the fold of the binding. Once more. There, you can definitely see that in the fold of the binding. And then I'm going to pull it out. And I'm going to take another stitch. The back of the project, the edge of the binding, and pull. Now I'm going to again go through into the binding, but only halfway, because I want this thread to travel on the inside of the binding. So basically, here is the fold. Now I'm going to come out of the fold, excuse my hands, and I'm going to take another small stitch. And I am going to follow this process all the way around. There's my stitch, here's my travel, and you can see if I had the right color thread in here, you would never notice those stitches. As I said, I'm doing it with a high contrast thread because I really want you to see what I am doing here. Okay? This is not difficult. It gives a very professional look when you're finished. Don't forget to match your thread. I would normally use white in this case. And there we go. And you do this all the way around. Such a piece of cake. It really is. Just take your time. Enjoy it. Enjoy this journey. It may be a new skill you're developing right now, or it could be something that you haven't done in a while and you just enjoy it. Okay, and off we go. We're going to complete this all the way around, and when we do, our table topper is ready to be put out, and enjoy the compliments on it. Okay, we're going to bring you back here just a little bit. There we go. And that is how we attach bias tape binding to our circular table topper. I hope that you will do this. I hope that you'll join us for every month for our new template tasting table topper Fridays. We'll be here the third Friday of each month with a new table topper, and we're going to try to match up the holiday seasons with each topper. So we will see you then. Until we do, let's quilt.